introduce yourself. Tell the audience who you are and who you be in the world.
So, I am a life coach for sensitive people in business and leadership. My background's in providing psychotherapy, consulting for highly sensitive people, trauma-informed care, and various identity intersections.
Mm.
And then I bring a lot of cultural, racial, social justice. And by nature, I'm just when you get Lauren, you get spiritual. So that's
Yes.
always incorporated.
I love that. You and I have so much in common in what we do. So, in case you don't know who I am, I'm Safrianna Lughna, the Queer Spirit Guide, and I am a transformational coach and co founder of Living Lunas, a brand all about uplifting the others of the world. So, we're going to talk about spirit today and intuition and all of the things that that brings into life, right? Every domain of life can intersect with spirit because we are human beings having a spiritual experience.
Yep.
So tell me, your intuition has really come forward recently and said, like, I'm ready for something bigger. I'm ready to transition into serving in a different way. And I'm curious how you were led to that, like what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, so I really would say the last 2 to 3 years have me really coming out of a shell. But I would say spiritually, intuitive, like I've probably been on that spiritual intuitive journey intentionally, probably since my early 20s.
Okay.
Um, but I think personal, professional, global dynamics in the last few years have really cracked me open.
We'll do
Some
that.
relational transitions, right? I think life brings you opportunities to peel back the BS.
Absolutely.
And now I'm ready and excited to really be me, moving out of what feels like a very limiting model. And I think it has its place and it helps a lot of people. And for me, my soul really just it doesn't fit anymore into the roles that I am in.
Yes.
I'm too big for the casing. And so that's
Mm,
really what's led me to this stage where kind of trying to transcending these other models, which is okay. I don't like to sound righteous, but like for me, I know that to be in my authenticity and to bring other people into their who they really are, I really need to be working on a different wavelength.
yes. I
And so
absolutely feel that.
that's where I'm at. And I'm finding every step of the way I get affirmation, sign. And it's been like on full blast, I would say, like the past few months. I mean, I feel like
Yes.
downloads, dreams, angel numbers. I mean, all the woo stuff. I mean, that's just who you get with me. And,
Yes.
usually
Same.
my life, right? Like people that are like very aligned. And I'm like, okay, I needed to let this other stuff go in
Yeah.
order to really continue to feel really be me. And then I'm rising with all these people that are like, yes, Lauren, like, let's do this. Like, I don't want to do
Yes.
that anymore. So
Yeah.
that's my personal and professional journey. It's all connected.
I mean, and it feels very much sort of parallel to my own because I was a trauma therapist for nearly a decade and I loved the work I was doing with people. And I loved being a service provider. I love being of service and helping people step into new layers of themselves. But I started to notice several things. One was I can't bring me fully to the table, which felt really because I was like
Yes.
guiding my clients, be yourself, be the fullness of yourself, and shine your light and do this and be real and be open and authentic. And then I'm here like, but I can't tell you that I also like that or do this or do that. And it was just I started to notice the limitation in serving them.
Yep. I mean, I might be using a controversial term here. I'm always mindful, but it's really like this professional code switching that kills your soul.
It does. And I was a
Not
public school
okay.
teacher before I was a therapist. And it's the same thing. Like you're a teacher. And, if someone runs into you in the store, they're like, what is the teacher doing at the grocery store? Why are they not in their classroom? Right. Like, and that was the same. It started to feel the same with the therapy office of like, I'm a therapist, so I can't share my stories of trauma and shadow work and stuff publicly because that's going to mess up my client's progress, which I have come to find out isn't really true in the first place.
No, it's BS, but you have to hold that, honoring that. I'm very respectful of my
Hmm.
roles and
Yeah.
licensures and what that means, evidence based, and all the words, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be in that role, I'm going to respect that role. And for me, that's what's aligned for me. Some people can do their thing and like but for me, I have to be in the right hat, right?
Yeah.
And just wanting to be able to move beyond those labels, and always having to hold the clinical and the diagnostic and like educating. I mean, I'm often saying like, okay, so clinically, this is kind of what's accepted in the field, FYI, informed
Hmm.
consent, so you know what you're getting with me. And this is the approach that I take, right?
Hmm.
Which is good, right? We're teaching, we're providing, I think, within our ethics. I'm a social worker, like you're giving the different angles and letting them discern as the client what
Right.
it's for them. And do I really want to do that for the rest of my life? Referencing something that I think is only a kernel of
Yeah.
truth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I struggled so much with, so I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor, so LCPC. Um, but clinical social work and clinical counseling are the same darn thing. The ethics might be a little smidge different, but I mean, it really still boils down to diagnosis. And this is a person I have to treat medically. And in all of my own personal work and all of my professional work, I've seen time and time again that everything goes back to trauma. It's literally unpacking the trauma of whatever limiting, negative, toxic, outdated, whatever we were taught and or experienced, and like overcoming that to find ourselves. That's literally what like 98% of therapy work is.
Yeah.
It's just navigating that. And like when we're able to say, I've experienced a similar trauma, it actually can make the outcomes much stronger between us and the person we're working with, which is something that coaching often allows that therapy doesn't.
Mhm.
And I retired fully from one-on-one a few months ago and have been talking a lot more openly now that I'm like, well, if you want to pull my license, that's fine. But I got to the point in my practice where I was like, I need to use more therapeutic self-disclosure because I could intuitively feel they just need to hear
Yes.
I've been through something like this. Not me pain dumping or trauma, because you wouldn't do that in coaching either, right? But gosh, I know what you're going through because or not exactly what you're going through, but I have been through similar and I know how hard it is to navigate this. So I just want you to know that we have a shared experience so that you can really open and know that you're being held by somebody who isn't judging you for this, right? And when I was finally able to do that with some of my clients, all of a sudden their clinical outcomes went through the roof too. And then I was like, all right, because we can't keep doing this because this could get me in trouble. And why should this get me in trouble? It was
Rolling the eyes, right? It's all this punitive, fear-based scarcity mindset of like, and people don't realize, like, they think they're, I can get on my soapbox. I
get
think
on your
they're trying to
soapbox.
be helpful, right, by doing the right thing and ethics. And I'm naturally ethically minded because that's like my moral compass
Me
too.
too.
And I'm
Yeah.
a rule follower, but really my moral compass is pretty on point. And there is a point at which I feel like you're shrinking people and their abilities because you're trying to make it correct, right?
Yes.
Who is that? Who is that serving? And what is that, right? Being correct and perfect. But I think you're talking about lived experience, right?
Hmm.
And it's something I was sharing with another colleague of mine. It's like, I think we need a lot less therapy and a lot more peer support and mentorship. Like,
Yes.
I think like a friend of mine
Yes.
was like, you don't need therapy. You need friends. like that's real life. We live in a
Yeah.
society now that because we're so alienated.
Yes.
We work and we're tired and we're trying to do all the things and be all the things, and it's not possible.
It's not. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this conversation I had the other day with Kimberly Winters. She's returned to multiple soul connection calls because we just love to go deep. And we were talking about, her passion in life is veganism. That's what she's here to teach other people about how to have a better impact in the world by either being vegan or doing some plant-based stuff in their life. And she gets this question all the time of like, well, what about the homeless people and what about the kids and what about this? And we can't as an individual take on everything. We have to pick our passion. And yet what you're speaking to is this idea that we can take it all on, that we can work and we can have relationships and we can raise kids and we can have a household and we can cook and we can clean and we can have creative projects and time for ourselves.
And one job, one partner is going to do it all for you.
Yep.
No. Why do you think the divorce rate is so damn high and the people who aren't divorced cheat on each other?
I know, and I'm a polyamory advocate and educator, and I'm polyamorous and have been literally since I was like 9. So the whole one relationship thing is complete bunk to me. But yeah, like there aren't a lot of good relational skills in the world right now because we're not raised. Most of us were not raised with parents who had communication skills and knew how to be compassionate to themselves. I mean, my mom and I, we get into it quite a bit. One of my favorite funny stories is I dabbled into TikTok for a little bit and was trying to do the TikTok thing. And I did a post where I was like, have we considered that maybe millennials aren't lazy and poor, but maybe that they want better standards of living for themselves and don't think this is fair? And this person commented and was like, well, my generation worked so hard and blah, 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 so you guys just need to work just as hard. And I was like, I'm so sorry you had to work so hard. It should never have been that way. Like, that shouldn't have been the standard. And I understand why you feel that way because that's what you had to go through. And so you think everyone else has to go through that, but that's not the case. We need to make better for our children. It was my mom who made the comment. I didn't know it was her. And then I found out later that it was my mom. And I'm like, no wonder I'm over here trying to uncouple all of this like overworking dynamic because my own mom is on my TikTok telling me to overwork more.
Be small, be safe. Be
Yes.
safe, right? What is that's trauma, right?
Yes,
Survival
and it is.
mentality, right? But I don't think that just to honor our ancestry, y'all did work real hard, and this is what you worked for. For
So we could
us
have
to have
better.
choices,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
experience joy and not as much fear, right?
Hmm.
But that translation, right? They're having trouble. And so I think, again, they have a burden that they're processing, and I think some people can do it more than others. And
Yeah.
we're not all meant to I would say I don't think that we're all meant to peel back every piece of pain in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? And I think accepting that, but as much as healing as we can do in this lifetime, I think is where it's at. But I think this generational shift, right?
Yes.
People, I would say we're probably somewhere in the same age bracket. And then the younger ones are like, I don't want to do that. And people are like, oh, you're lazy. I'm like, why? Because they don't want to die before retirement that you stayed in the same job for a million years so you could have the good life and you can't even make it to retirement because you worked hard.
I know that's my family. Like all of them are on disability now. They didn't make it to retirement age. They are sick. They are broke. They are unhappy. That's not what I want for them either. That's not what I want for anyone. And like going back to the intuition piece and leadership, like when I tune into my soul wisdom, my soul says we deserve better and we can make better. So that's what I want to fight for. So here we are, like trying to untangle this absolute mess of society. And I totally agree. Like, not everyone is here to untangle that in this life. I totally believe in reincarnation. So I think that we have many lifetimes where we're unpacking more and more layers. Because, I mean, even if we look at this life, and let's assume this was the only life we had, I've certainly lived like 5 lives in this life. I don't know about you, but there's been a lot of awakenings and like oh, I'm not meant to be going near that at all. And then I like crack open the next layer of me and I'm like, oh, that is for me.
Mhm.
Right. So
Yep.
I think there's a lot of unpacking that we do over a very long course of time. Um, with that though, like your intuition and how you've been entering this new space, you've been entering this new energy. What is your intuition telling you is next? Now that you've made this initial leap, like I'm leaving more of that therapeutic world behind, I'm entering this more coaching space where I get to bring the fullness of my gifts. What's open for you because you made that choice?
So what's been coming up for a long time within myself, and then I do all my tarot, zodiac, YouTube stuff, which is awesome, by the way. I just love it.
Yeah.
But the word collaboration keeps coming up, and connection and partnerships. Because that's what I stand for,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're interrelated. We're bringing our magic together to raise the collective vibration, right? And so, what does that mean on a base level? It means I'm not supposed to do it all. That coming back to that cultural idea, no, you're actually not supposed to do it all. That's why you
Hmm.
can't,
Yeah.
right? We're actually meant to connect with people that align and complement and challenge us to grow, right? We're meant to be a little
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is not unsafe, right? Always, right? Um, and providing a multifaceted provision of service. Like that's what I feel called to. What am I doing today? Offer one-on-one services, and I will probably expand something in organizational work. But I do feel that partnership is going to be a part of that journey because I really believe in more of a panel offering.
Hmm.
Right? It's a conversation. When you provide education, one person shouldn't just be talking. Wisdom is shared voices, right? There's
Right.
multifaceted elements to truth. And so I'm feeling called to partnership, but also to it have, I say influence always sounds a little really top down, but I would say influence, but I would say it's spirit influence. I'm just channeling it
Hmm.
over larger groups of people, right?
Hmm.
Bringing these ethics and spiritual ethics, almost what it feels like spiritual
Yeah.
wisdom into group settings, and really being able to help people. I'm saying top down, so I chose leadership because you got to pick an access point,
Hmm.
right? Like with people who really care and
Yeah.
really are committed to do hard work for helping work, right?
Yes.
Organizational culture, like I'm really passionate about workplace culture issues and things like that because we spend most of our lives working, which is problematic, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
It is a problem.
Um, but not everybody has the privilege to, like, oh, I'm just going to start my own business. Well, yeah. And by the way, we don't need 900 businesses. we actually need to have more collective connection,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and be thinking about the group at large and helping each other, right? If we're in
Absolutely.
a workplace or we're going to lead, how do you treat your staff well?
Yeah. And, something that's come into my purview in the last year and a half is the body of nine system. It's a it's a physiological understanding of the human body. And through study, we've figured out that there are nine different types of physiological humans. And these nine types in a group setting, when all nine are present, the energy of the space feels entirely different. And it proves that we need the other eight gifts in order to like really come together in community, and like that understanding has really made me feel more called to collaboration because I'm like, I only have one one ninth of the gifts that humans have been given, so I want the other eight to come forward so I can make the offering that's going to change the world, because I'm a natural number nine. I speak natural number nine language. And not non nines are like, what's she talking about? But then when I bring in like I have a partner who's a one and a partner who's a two, when I start to bring in their perspectives, now we're speaking to three kinds of people at least. So the more conversations we have with more people, the more that we're getting these different individual perspectives, and the more that we are able to speak to include more people, right? And we can't include everyone just as ourselves. We have to have other people to be able to take all the other people into. So it is truly a collaborative effort, and I'm so excited for you that that's where you're kind of getting to as your next big step, because that's where I've been for, I would say, the last year, and it's been so nourishing, like the people that I have met and the collaborations that have come up and the learning of myself through learning through others. It's so tremendous, and I believe we rise together. It's like my big phrase that I've been saying lately is we rise together,
Yes.
not alone.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue, I mean, I just think these are laws of the universe.
Hmm.
I mean, when you start talking like that, it starts to sound really religious, but it's not. I'm okay with being wrong. I mean, that's the piece too. It's like I don't have to be right,
Yeah.
right? But what is right, right? Is my aligned action within myself. What maybe is the outcome, the greater outcome for making aligned action within myself,
Hmm.
right? But that's how I function. I feel like I see it all the time. I see
Yeah.
it every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then, that brings up for me, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but the idea of manifestation. If we're talking about spiritual laws and intuition and all of that, people think, oh, I just need to think really hard about what I want. But that's only half of the equation, because that's the spiritual part. But then we have the human experience, the 3D, the physical, the body, and we have to take the aligned actions to move towards the vision of what we are trying to manifest, right? Um, and that's like something that, again, people just want to be able to have this. I want to be able to think about it and just be there. But that's not how this world works when we look at universal laws. We have to align the mind, the emotions, the spirit, all of the bodies we cannot see, and then also the physical body taking the actions that actually follow everything that we did over here.
And it's that element of co-creative action. Like I believe, I mean, that's my like. I end up just adding it into my what I'm doing now, co-creative life coaching, intuitive, whatever. You have to pick a name, right? Um,
Words.
but I kept saying it right to people. I'm like, you co-create with your opportunity, right? And there it is again.
Hmm.
There's a way of taking responsibility and accountability for yourself and listening to what your inner voice is saying. And you're leaving space for the universe and others to fill in the rest. You are one important link. You matter, and you also don't matter as much as you think you're supposed to.
Yes.
Right? And both are
Yes.
true, right? So leaving that space to co-create with an opportunity to create openings in your life.
Yeah.
Right? And so that those other things can come in, right? And if we keep investing in closed opportunities, well, we get sick, we get depressed, we get lonely, we use substances, we eat, we spend, whatever, right? Because you're in this closed system that you've created,
Yeah.
going to wells that have no water because you
Mm.
wish they did.
Oh, great way to put that.
But that's the piece. But one of the things that I've learned personally in really painful ways, and it's got me here, is that like there's a lot of grief involved in healing and elevating.
There is.
And I have so much empathy for why people don't do it. They don't have the support. They don't have whatever. It could be financial. It could be social. Like they're in survival mode, right?
Right.
But like, what would you have to lose? What will you have to maybe lose in order to grow? Has been like that's real life. And
Yeah.
if I didn't choose to lose those things, or things didn't line up to where they were going to fall away, whether I wanted it to be that way or not, I
Right.
wouldn't be where I am.
Yes.
I had to let that stuff go. And
Yes.
so a lot of like what I see with my clients in the therapy practice and moving into this coaching role is like really getting into reality with ourselves, right?
Hmm.
Like, what are the systems that are not working for me? Why? And why am I not shifting?
Yeah.
What am I afraid to let go of? Because what would that mean about me, my identity, the illusion that I am living in? What would it mean about the reality of the world we live in, and like my false sense of security and certainty, right? Certainty is like a cultural value of like certainty, and but that's not real. Life
Right.
is not certain.
There's nothing that's certain except for that if we wake up tomorrow, the sun will probably rise. Like, that's pretty certain. Unless, the aliens come and blow up our sun for some strange reason. I don't think they want to do that. But yeah, like that's certain. Everything else, the only certainty is death eventually, right? We don't know when it's going to happen. That's the certainty. And so yeah, if we can be gentle with ourselves and accepting, like, I can just do the best that I can do. I can keep expanding. I can keep being willing to look at what's going on. I can keep being willing to heal within myself so that I can dismantle the systems outside of me that I've installed inside of me. It's
Yes.
huge. And then other people begin to see us doing that. Even if they don't have access to doing it themselves yet, they begin to see that it's possible. Like I talk about that in a lot of my writing is I didn't know what compassion was until I had a therapist who gave me genuine compassion.
Yeah.
I was in my early 20s at that point.
That's real life.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I can be compassionate to myself. And I remember there was a day that like I just couldn't get out of bed to go to therapy or something. I was so depressed and I texted her and she just was like, "That's okay. Love yourself. Take this day in bed. Be compassionate and kinder." And I was like, "What?" And that was like the beginning of like, "Oh, you mean I can rest when I need to rest?" What? Yeah, so there's so much that we're dismantling within ourselves that has been perpetuated by this outside system. And I think the most impactful thing we can do is do that work inside of ourselves, however we can, whatever it looks like for us. And yes, like you said, not everyone, for whatever reason, is going to be there yet, whether it is they can't afford to get therapy or they don't have transportation to go into a center that only, they give therapy away for free, but you have to go in person. Or it could be um, they're so in their trauma that they're so low that they have no ability to mobilize to taking the steps yet. There's all kinds of different reasons we don't get help or can't get help. And when we are ready, we can find little ways to begin, right? Even if it's just YouTube or TikTok or reading an article online, and then beginning to open up to the possibility of what else is out there, which is literally why I do what I do now. And I just like talk about it all, right? Publicly, so that other people can see this is not how it is. One of my worst experiences as a therapist, and I wonder if you've ever experienced this, was having clients say to me, "Why am I the only one that's suffering like this? Why am I the only one who's miserable like this? Everyone else out there has a job or has a relationship or has this or has that." And I just wanted to be like, no, that's not what it is. But there's this, like, again, the sort of clinical space where you're in this container and you can only bring in what's in this container into the container. And so you're left with all this other information and all this intuitive knowing that you want to be able to bring into your people so they can get that dose of reality. But there's a limitation there. Did you ever experience that though?
Yeah, I'm thinking because now, I think just my own confidence and identity strength, and I don't know. I just do what I want.
That's where I got to, and I was like, all right, it's time to leave my therapy.
But I say it, right? Like I name it. I say, look, this is how this perspective would see it. If you're talking to Lauren, this is what I'm saying, right? Informed consent, giving them models and
Yes.
options. But yes, right? Like I would say, I would say in the past, there would be like, there's so many things I want to say, I would share, and I would feel stumped, and I would feel powerless with my client, which is, again, I think a problem with this professionalism. And, well, how do you feel about that? What do you mean, how do I feel about the fact that I'm lonely, that I don't have friends, that I don't have money, that is that helping? I mean, it's not. I mean, it is, right? But like, right? Like, I would be curious about, like, yeah, I hear that. But and there's a loneliness, and this is where there's societal stuff, and I'm like, we live in a society where community is actually not that accessible,
Yeah.
unless you want to go to like a church, and a lot of people have religious trauma.
So much religious trauma. Talk about intuition and spirituality and moving through that. Like, I cannot tell you how many people I'm unpacking religious trauma with. As a therapist, as a coach, as a friend, as me, because it's a lot. This one size fits all spiritual approach where religion just sort of says this is what it is, and if your experience is not this, it's wrong.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different experiences out there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, and I don't, and I'm not stepping back because I really like to honor, just like I honor ancestry, like I honor the hard work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right, there are a lot of beautiful communities who actually do this well. I mean, I met
Yeah.
something recently that I was like, gosh, that's really beautiful. Like that church connection, but like he was able to hold a piece of himself. I'm like, gosh, that's awesome, right? But what also can happen is when we're lonely, we get taken in by these communities that are often set up to just survive, right? Like they mimic society and organizations, right? It's all set up around keeping members and keeping you small and dependent, right? Not autonomous and expansive. And so I
Yes.
think a lot of the religious trauma is wrapped up in a lot of that, patriarchal, all the jargon, right? White
All the things.
misogyny, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I feel very blessed to have found a church community that is a community, right? And they want you to shine your light, and they don't see a one size fits all because they're just like everyone and everything is God. And I'm like, cool, I like that approach. Like, because I see us all going back to something you said earlier of we're all important and not important, right? Like we're all an individual, and yet I see it as a cell of the same body. Like we're all just a cell in the bigger body of the universe. And so we do have our function, right? Like cells in the liver have different functions than cells in the heart, right? Like we all have our purpose, and it's important that every cell in the body be healthy. We want that overall health. That doesn't always mean that each cell in the body is going to talk to all the other cells in the body, right? We don't have to get along or agree on each other's missions to silently support and say, yes, you can do your thing over there and I'll do my thing over here, and we're going to be healthy.
Yes.
Like that's the thing. Is if we can see ourselves as a unified whole, it would change everything. It's like the unified whole with the sovereign individual. Both of these are true.
Yeah, and the collective healing, right? Just say some of the social racial justice programs I've done, particularly I'll plug them because these things changed my life, right? With Loretta Ross and Lone Tran, but I did one with Dr. Amanda Kent, by the way. They're both awesome. Was the concept of you don't need to be in that role. Like everybody has a role, right? You don't need like the person who's like more of the disruptor or who's going to be controversial in what they say is just as important as someone who's coming in with who's maybe, this is a lot of my clients, right? They're like sensitive and they're observing and they're taking in. And then when they speak, that shit matters. I can't remember if we can curse or not, but it matters, right?
Do it.
Like you listen, right?
Yeah.
And so, but all of it's needed, right? Like I'm not that, I mean, I say that now, who knows? But like, I'm not like that, like, just like, I'm like, make these decisions, like chop, 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 chop. But I'm a great mentor, intuitive guide, like spirit guide for people in leadership and like helping them process their gifts to go execute the plan, right? But we all have a role. You don't need to be like that person. You need to be you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The
Right?
most important thing you can do is be you.
Exactly. And so and other entities, like there's beautiful things that other entities are doing. They're doing some other things that aren't so great. But do we need to, I mean, I hate this concept. It's disturbing, but I think it's really good. It's like, do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? Which is an awful, like, economic trauma. I was like, all of this is terrible. But it is. I mean, it should be disturbing. Do you throw somebody out? Do you throw all of this out because you don't like A, B, and C? And there is a space for limits, right? But these are existential conversations.
Yes, and we need to keep having them.
Right? Where is the limit? Where do you say no? Where do you say, no, you got to throw that exam out? Or do we be more discerning and explore and ask more questions, right? These are the existential pools. And I don't know what the answer is, but I think communication and decisions have to be made. And some people are going to be better at making decisions, and some people are going to be better at guiding.
Yes, and that is, going back to what I said about Body of Nine and the concept that there are 9 different gifts that humans bring in. Yeah, some of the gifts are really key questions that natural number 3s like get right into the question of what is the soul in this moment needing to hear and be pinged with, versus me, I'm like, let's all balance and figure out how everyone can be included. That's my gift. And then there are gifted space holders who are just able to kind of like anchor in the energy. And then there are people who access the emotional wisdom and bring that up to be a part of the conversation. Like, we need to have communities, to have conversations, to have all these different perspectives to find the actual answers. We can't find them in isolation. I mean, we can certainly, I talked to someone the other day, and they said like, oh, it's great that you're doing XYZ, but I don't do any work with people. I only work with my spiritual guides. And I was like, that's really an interesting approach. And I was like, I respect that. And you're not for my circle, because I think we have to interact with one another because the spiritual dimension and our guides are just that's just one other dimension. It's not every dimension.
And you're bringing maybe I don't know if it's humanist values to your work, right? Like, I'm looking to do my sphere of influence. I wanted to reflect human evolution, right? So they're working on a different wavelength, and that's okay. But that's just not...
I'm here to save the planet. Like, I'm here to make sure the planet survives and does not end in a cataclysmic event.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to do that with other humans.
That's your in. That's your in.
So this has been an incredible conversation. Is there anything that you want to just kind of wrap up with today, or anything that is just on your heart to share before we conclude this conversation?
The image I'm getting is just like bright light. I just encourage everyone to keep moving towards the light, whatever that means. That's what I feel like I've been doing. And it doesn't mean that you don't experience kind of that pain or ache or shadow or human experience. For me, I've been experiencing, I feel like, the shadow at my back. But I honor that process of releasing and shifting. It's just never too late to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And remember that without the light, there is no shadow. And without the shadow, there is no light. It's all interconnected. So if we can just keep moving in the direction of basking in the light, shining our own light, we can't really go wrong. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
This has been so lovely. I would love to have you back for another conversation. If you enjoyed this conversation, of course, you can reach out to Lauren. You can reach out to me. And we just want to keep these very real, meaningful conversations going, because this is how we heal the world. I truly believe that. So thank you so much for doing your part and being Lauren. We need you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.